Hi, everyone. I'm Livio, and today I'm presenting the EcoTechnical Interface, Attuning to the Instrumental, presented on behalf of myself and Laura Devendorf. My presentation today will be a high-level one, but I encourage you to read our paper for more detail. As the first author, I developed the multimodal projects that oriented this work, and together Laura and I reflected on findings to situate them within HCI and make them instructive for designers. So this paper proposes a site within which HCI could be engaged in critical reflection, what we're calling the EcoTechnical Interface, which describes the increasingly complex boundary between humans, the more than human world, and human design technologies. In this paper, we call for designers to attune to how work at this boundary can advertently or inadvertently cause harms, such as the instrumentalization of more than human beings. The word interface originates in physics, the study of nature. And the concept was later taken up in design. Moving from the more than human world of physics to human design technologies, the interface traveled from the biosphere to the technosphere. In recent years, however, the interface has made additional moves. A new epidemiological use has taken on greater resonance, that of the human-animal environment interface, referring to where human and more than human health come into contact. And as it shuttled from bio to techno and back again, the interface underwent another significant update. Human-animal environment interfaces have increasingly become infused with technical interfaces, from camera traps and sensors to drones and plant identification apps. Technology has become embedded in human and more than human relations, interfacing among interfaces. This meeting point, which we're calling the EcoTechnical Interface, is not a technology in and of itself. Rather, it represents boundary conditions which facilitate or constrain relations through affordances. Interfaces, then, have always been environmental. Given this and the increasing prominence of the ecotechnical interface, we argue that designers must actively place interfaces back into conversation with environmental discourse, taking into consideration, for example, how they instrumentalize non-human beings, as well as their material costs, the logics and value systems they perpetuate, and other potential harms of their affordances. In this paper, we take up 3 case studies which combine ethnographic methods with creative production. Here we delineate the breadth of sites spanned by the ecotechnical interface, and we also lay out poetic contextual inquiry as a tactic for engaging with these sites in order to reveal harms. Drawing from existing tactics of contextual inquiry, poetic contextual inquiry similarly takes up observation in situ as a core principle, but emphasizes noticing in order to privilege diverse embodiment. We argue that noticing is valuable regardless of subject, but is particularly necessary where non-human participants cannot be engaged through human language. In addition, we found that the poetic is productive for moving away from instrumentalization, in that it enables inquiry that is speculative, imaginary, or that otherwise offers space for pursuing experimental paths which may be harmful when placed into concrete practice. We conceive of poetic contextual inquiry within a constellation of methods alongside, for example, feminist HCI, critical design, and noticing as method. Here, framing our practices as poetic contextual inquiry is not intended as a prescriptive toolkit, but rather as an open-ended characterization that leaves further space for investigations within HCI. So to briefly touch on each of our 3 case studies, Thermal Power is a short film that centers on the conservation of the American pika, a rabbit who lives in the alpine tundra and is a climate indicator species. In this, along with the other case studies, poetic contextual inquiry included immersion in both eco and technical contexts. Here, working with a biologist to study pikas in the field, as well as developing a tactic for mediated noticing of pikas through TundraCam, a steerable networked research camera. Each of these inquiry contexts facilitated particular findings. Embodied attunement helped to surface thermoception as a central thread of research. Meanwhile, engaging with the site through the camera facilitated a longitudinal affordance, enabling sustained engagement. Through creative output, the case study also opened channels for resisting instrumentalization by, for example, de-emphasizing pika's cute charisma, often exploited in climate communications, and also by addressing the film's own complicity in instrumentalization and environmental harm. Salvaging Birds is a multimedia essay that critically examines bird conservation. It again began with poetic contextual inquiry at both eco and technical sites, in this case in natural history specimen collections and within birdsong data platforms. Each of these enhanced attunement to the instrumentalization of birds in conservation. For example, Bird data has been demonstrated, much like human data, to contain significant biases and misclassifications. Bird specimen and song data sets contain male biases, likely because female and intersex birds are often less colorful and melodic than their male counterparts. Once again, poetic contextual inquiry here proved generative not only for noticing instrumentalization, but also for subverting it. The project's outputs include devising a method for querying birdsong datasets by training a neural network on birdsong labeled female and birdsong unlabeled by sex as a gesture towards missing intersex birds. This produced speculative birdsong, imagined vocalizations of previously absented birds. It also enabled thinking through data gaps without having to enter into bird habitats and further instrumentalize living beings. Finally, Sent to Signal is an essay and short film that maps the ecotechnical interface on the intimate scale of companion species. Here, poetic contextual inquiry examined the processes of feline death as they were experienced in domestic settings and as they were recorded, analyzed, and embedded within technologies of capture, predictive systems, and data economies. Poetic contextual inquiry here again revealed a multiplicity of instrumentalizations. For example, it reinforced the degree to which non-human animals unwittingly participate in the training of image recognition algorithms, even after death. It also made clear that the medicalized extension of non-human life can be instrumentalizing towards the needs of human companions, particularly as the validation of non-human pain remains relatively opaque. Poetic contextual inquiry was also again used to both expose and resist instrumentalization, here by subverting some of the feline data collected by surveillance capitalism towards grieving and creative ends. Taken together, these cases revealed the scope and complexity of the ecotechnical interface, demonstrating its significance as a site of sustained inquiry and surfacing how non-human beings are instrumentalized across domains. They also demonstrated a flexible exploration of poetic contextual inquiry, including immersion in nuanced context, expanded and embodied modes of noticing, and speculative and imaginary play. We found these approaches to be productive for designers to both identify and resist instrumentalization. Each of these cases, particularly the third, where the most intimate and sustained forms of care were possible, also confirmed that instrumentalization is an inevitable challenge within a praxis that engages the more than human world. Instrumentalization is not easily resolved in multi-species design, given the inherent power dynamics at play, and it may be impossible for designers to fully decenter themselves in multi-species work. These circumstances can be paralyzing, but we suggest an orientation towards decentering as a horizon, guiding movement that is concurrently understood to remain continually beyond reach. Furthermore, within a collaboration that split across design and the production of artistic artifacts, we saw a promise in future translational work between HCI and other disciplines. Thank you very much.